guys, welcome back to our channel. So today we're on episode 8 of Cloak and Dagger, so we're getting close to the end. If you're new to this channel, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and also hit the bell for notifications for every time we do a new video.
This was an episode I was really looking forward to because obviously after the last episode we kind of were left off with this whole thing of knowing that, okay, Tandy now has Ivan has, you know, kind of available to her to kind of be able to use as a tool to help her kind of figure out everything else that went on with Roxxon Corp and what her dad actually knew, didn't know, and his type of involvement, so that she could get a little bit closer to basically being able to clear his name, or at least be able to bring it into a brighter light. While Tyrone, on the other hand, we actually finally got to see him use his powers a little bit more freely. Granted, it was in this type of dream type state, or in this mental state. So I was really interested in seeing, basically, like, going into this episode, how much of a grasp was Tyrone going to have on his powers? Was that going to translate? And what was Tandy going to do now that now that her and Tyrone helped basically rescue Ivan Hess from his own mind? Right. And basically we got the answers to those questions, along with a lot of other stuff as well. I really liked, well, first of all, let's start with the beginning. Like, I liked the beginning of this episode because it had almost, like, the way it started, it almost had a feel of a season finale. Mm-hmm. And I was actually okay with it. Like, if this could have potentially have been the last episode, and I don't think I would have, like, complained that much, because even though it's only been 8 episodes, it feels like they've been telling, like, a complete story for 8 episodes. And not only did the beginning feel like a season finale, but, like, I feel like the course of, like, how everything kind of plays out in this episode really played as if it was a season finale, where you could have felt like, oh, this is how they're going to end the season. They're going to end it on some type of note, some type of high note, and there's going to be this whole question mark of what is next season going to hold for these characters. Right. But there is a serious plot twist within this episode. But I like how they started it, because this episode basically takes place on the anniversary of both Tandy's dad dying and Tyrone's brother dying. Mm-hmm. So it's the anniversary of that of that event, as well as, actually, I guess in a way, the same day that they were able to basically start getting their powers was the same day that they got their powers. And so we get some flashbacks of basically, like, earlier events to that day, other than just what we saw in episode 1. Mm-hmm. You know, we get to see Tandy practicing her ballet with her dad, and her dad giving her some words of encouragement, like, helping her understand that she can't just be so quick to give up just because things are difficult. At the same time, we get to see Tyrone as a kid in a different element than what we've seen him so far as in the season, where he was this happy-go-lucky kid who really loved his big brother, and not just Tyrone, but his family as a whole were just different people. They were happier people. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of get to see those types of events prior to the disaster, and even Tyrone getting some advice from Billy, basically saying, like, look, as you get older, as you mature, you'll be better than me at certain things, giving him that type of big brotherly love and advice. So all of that leads into basically these two characters now having to basically deal with this quote-unquote anniversary of this tragedy that has taken place in both of their lives. And the thing that I thought was really cool is how each family deals with it differently.
Well, the other family didn't really deal with it. Exactly.
But that is different than how Tandy's family, and it's like, I mean, this show has always highlighted the differences between these two characters, both Tandy and Tyrone, not just with their powers being different, not just with their lifestyles being different, but just how they handle life in general differently. And so on one hand, we have Tandy and her mom, who they have a tradition. They have a tradition of how they choose to remember Tandy's father and memorialize him on this anniversary. And even though Tandy hasn't been a part of it the last few years, she takes part this time because she kind of feels compelled to. As we've seen her grow throughout this episode, she's trying to basically have a relationship with her mom. She's matured and become more responsible So it's a big step for her to basically want to take part in that event with her mom.
Right.
But on the flip side, like you were saying, Tyrone's parents basically act as if it's any other day, but not because they don't want to remember. It's just that it's so painful for them that they can't really, memorialize. And I thought it was really telling in the way that Tyrone's dad asked him, "So what do you have planned for today?" And Tyrone's response, and it's rare that we get to see Tyrone be so upfront and honest with his emotions. And I think it's also really telling of how his parents aren't used to him lashing out with his emotions, that they would actually much rather him keep it all bottled in, even though they never say so by their actions. More so his mom, I think. More so his mom would much rather him keep everything bottled up, because I think that's how she deals with things, is just to keep it all bottled in. So we see that whole interaction because his family chooses not to remember, or chooses not to kind of revisit that memory of Billy's passing. There is like this depressing vibe whenever they show the family. While Tandy, on the other hand, her and her mom are kind of excited about the ability to celebrate and remember her father in that day.
Right.
So while we have that all going on, each of these people actually have their own, both Tyrone and Tandy, while they're going through the course of the day, already have different motives going forward. Tandy even shows up at Tyrone's house to kind of further her mission, which is she's going to get the answers that she needs about Roxanne. And she shows up at Tyrone's house completely unannounced, completely unexpected. And at first it seemed like, wow, their relationship has progressed that fast.
We were tricked.
But in the same way, it has, though. It definitely comes across.
But she went there to steal something.
I mean, she went there to steal Tyrone's mom's badge. But at the same time, by her inviting Tyrone to basically spend an evening with her and her mom, remembering her brother as well as she remembers her dad, that's a huge step when you look at it in the grounds of a relationship, even a friendship. Tyrone and Tandy haven't known each other that long, but yet they're already they've had one type of power trip with each other where they were able to connect with their powers and do something together. And now we're starting to see how that's kind of propelling them forward.
Side note, speaking of relationship, where is his girlfriend?
Oh, Veta? Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't seen her the last couple episodes.
She's proven to be a really bad girlfriend. I was actually thinking about that too when watching this episode, is that, wow, even though Tandy was there to steal something, she was still there for Tyrone on the saddest day of his life.
Sure was.
Yeah, I agree. That was very telling. So Tandy's going on that mission to basically get her answers from the head, of Roxanne Corp. While Tyrone, on the other hand, is faced with this really kind of sudden force into action. I mean, I think he already kind of had his mind made up that he wanted to, for all this entire season, he's wanted to bust Detective Connors. But because Detective Connors has now kind of ID'd him, and now Tyrone's almost being forced to be the chased instead of the chaser, he decides, based on the information that he's got from Detective O'Brien, look, I'm not going to allow him to chase me. I'm not going to allow him to pursue me. I'm going to bust him.
Right.
And for me, this was a really, really cool episode for Tyrone because he's no longer being that introvert, passive person. He was being very, very aggressive and very forward with everything that he does in this episode. From taking his brother's cloak that I'm guessing that him and his dad probably helped finish. We didn't get to see a lot of that. I know Tyrone was working on it, but because of the way his dad was clinging onto it in this episode, which just shows going back to what we were talking about, how Tyrone's family won't just allow their emotions to pour out about this. Tyrone's dad has to went off by himself just to cry, and when Tyrone tried to comfort him, he shrugged it off, which is so, for me, it's weird. Because I grew up in a household where we were encouraged to express ourselves, so to see that from an adult, it was just kind of wow, that's a little weird. That you wouldn't even share that moment with your other son, and just be vulnerable in that moment. The crazy thing is, which we were able to see through Tyrone's flashbacks when he was a kid and as he went through like the after effects of Billy dying, his parents being that way forced him into the situation that he's in now, where Tyrone doesn't know how to handle his emotions. He doesn't know how to process his anger or his sorrow or his fears. Because his parents never were that outlet for him, which they should have been. In all honesty, yes, they were hurting. Yes, they were sad. Yes, they were scared for Tyrone. But he was, you know, 6, 7-year-old kid, or however old he was at that time, or 10-year-old kid. Because I think he's like 17, 18, somewhere around there. So,
I don't know.
like as parents, you should have been there for him to help kind of walk him through that. But because they weren't, we see the repercussions as he's older now. And the same thing with Tandy. By Tandy's mom not being there after the you know, tragedy of her dad passing, Tandy does a lot of things on her own. She steals a cell phone for the first time because she needs to contact somebody. You know, she kind of takes care of herself. She's taking care of her mom. And then to have her mom tell her that you can't count on anybody else. You know, those moments shape Tandy into who she is. But basically, as the rest of this episode unfolds, like I liked how Tyrone fully embraced his powers, and we got to see him, you know, teleporting at will and using it not just to teleport, but like to actually invoke fear, which I liked so much, because he wasn't just taking the fear that Detective Connors already had, like he was invoking an additional fear and then feeding off of that and amplifying it, to basically get the results that he wanted, which is to get a confession out of Detective Connors.
Which he did.
Right. And then we even were able to see with Tandy using her abilities and using the information and her detective skills, which she has really good detective skills.
Really good.
That she was able to basically force the head of Roxxon into getting what she wanted, or at least providing, at least in her way, invoking fear. But the thing that I think is like the highlight of this episode is closer to the end, right? Where it's Tandy, Tyrone, and her mom, and they're getting ready to have this memorial service. They're lighting the lantern and they're letting it out, and they're holding hands, but by them accidentally holding hands, or not accidentally, but by them holding hands, they accidentally trigger their powers. And they find out, Tandy finds out essentially, well, they find out together, but Tandy finds out more so that the father that she thought she had, the perfect man that she thought she knew, was actually abusive, because her mom has basically, we see that like her mom is in a movie theater and she's watching this movie of what she thinks their relationship is, what it was that it was this happy-go-lucky thing, when in actuality it was the complete opposite. There was a dark truth behind that, which is that he was abusive and that he was kind of negligent to her. Which is probably why what led her into her drinking and drug abuse and things like that.
Exactly.
And by Tandy learning that information, it then propels her to changing her mind about what she thought about or what she wanted to do with Roxxon, which was, instead of exposing them, she was just like, give me the money. Give me the money. And she goes, and I kind of felt kind of bad, because it forced her, that truth forced her to resort back to her old self, which is, I'm going to take care of me. I'm going to focus on me. But then obviously, other than that, we have, you know, the even bigger question mark leading into next episode, which is going to be, what is going to happen with Detective Connors? Because it seems as though Detective Connors has had some sort of play into the death of Detective O'Reilly's boyfriend. And that is clearly going to spell trouble for Tyrone. It's definitely going to spell trouble for Detective O'Reilly. And because Tandy and Tyrone are probably getting so close, it could even spell trouble for Tandy if she's willing to help out Tyrone in this situation. So that's a lot of what happened in this episode. I thought it was a really good episode. Really, really deep. There's a lot that, I mean, there's so much more that we could definitely talk about. But like always, please make sure to leave your comments in the comment section. Let us know what you thought of the episode. Was there anything that you saw that really stood out to you that we didn't get to touch on? And we'll definitely make sure to get back with you. And we will see you guys next time.
Bye.